There are moments in life when pain knocks meaning out of us. It's not the sharp kind that screams, it's the dull, aching kind that lingers, quietly, relentlessly, the heartbreak that no one sees, the rejection that echoes in your bones, the failure that creates to define your worth. In these moments, we are tempted to shrink, to pretend. Pain has a way of asking us the hard questions. Who are you when everything comfortable is stripped away? Who do you become when your plans crumble and the ground beneath your feet no longer feels steady? These aren't questions that logic answers. These are questions only courage can meet. There's a dangerous myth in our culture that strength means having it all together, that bravery is about being unshaken. But true strength, real courage, it's raw, it's vulnerable, it's messy. It's standing inside your brokenness and choosing to feel. It's looking at your wounds and refusing to let them become walls. Pain is not punishment. It's preparation. And yet, when life hits hard, that's now it feels. When your chest tightens from betrayal, when you're staring at the ruins of what you thought was secure, when everything familiar starts to crumble, it's so easy to believe you're being punished, that you failed, that life is unfair, that maybe you're just not enough. But those thoughts, as loud as they are not the truth. The truth is, the most powerful transformation often begins in the places we least want to go. Growth doesn't start in the comfort zone, it starts where things fall apart. When we are stripped of the things once learned on, our titles, our roles, our relationships, our plans, we're left with nothing but who we are underneath it all. And that's where the preparation begins. Pain invites you to meet yourself at a deeper level. It calls you to sit still, to stop running, to stop performing and pretending. It pulls away the noise and demands your attention, not as a punishment, but as a turning point. It clears the space so you can no longer avoid the truth of what you believe about yourself, your worth, and your identity. This kind of pain isn't chaos. It's sacred disruption. It's the universe stripping you of the illusion that everything must be perfect in order for you to be worthy of love, success, peace, or joy. Think about the people who inspire you most. The ones whose presence carries wisdom, words hold weight. Most of them didn't become that way because everything in their life worked out smoothly. They didn't develop resilience by gliding through ease. They became who they are because pain carved something deeper inside of them. Pain forced them to look within when they wanted to look away. It taught them to breathe in storms. It made them patient, compassionate, gritty, grounded. Their strength didn't come from being untouched by hardship. It came from walking through it, learning from it, and letting it change them. When you're in pain, you're in process. It's not always visible. It doesn't always look brave. Sometimes it looks like tears you cry alone. Sometimes it looks like saying no to things that once felt like survival. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's screaming. But beneath all of it, there's something unfolding that you can't yet see, a deeper truth about who you really are. Because pain breaks the surface version of you, the polished mask, the high-functioning image that the world claps for. And what it leaves behind is the version of you that can no longer pretend. That raw, honest self is the foundation for your next becoming. Pain doesn't show up without reason. It shows up because something needs to change. Not because you are bad or broken, because there's a future version of you that is calling. A version who can carry more, a version who leads with empathy. A version is less easily shaken. That version is waiting on the other side of this. But you don't become her by skipping the hard parts. You become her by walking through them with eyes wide open. You let the pain teach you what matters. You listen to what hurts and ask what it's trying to show you. You sit with the discomfort long enough to see what you've been avoiding. Most of us are taught to fear pain. We're taught to itemize it, to minimize it, to numb it with business or distraction or applause. But pain, when you stop running from it, becomes one of the most honors you'll ever face. It shows you where you've been betraying yourself to belong. It highlights where you've accepted less than a deserve. It brings to the surface the beliefs you inherited about your worth, your identity, your limits that no longer serve you. And it gives you a choice, repeat or rise. Preparation is rarely comfortable. It stretches you. It asks more of you than you feel ready to give. It pulls you away from what's familiar and into territory that feels uncertain. But this discomfort is the space where character is forged, where clarity is born, where healing begins. Pain is the refining fire, not to burn you down, but to burn away the things that were never truly yours. The roles you outgrew, the relationships that couldn't meet your depth, the dreams that belong to an old version of you. In their place, you begin to build something stronger, something truer, something more aligned with who you really are. When you embrace pain as preparation, everything shifts. You stop asking why this is happening to you and begin asking what it's awakening within you. You begin to understand that rock bottom is the end. It's the solid ground you rebuild from. You stop rushing the process and start honoring it, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because deep down, you know something powerful is being shaped in the fire. You may not see the outcome yet, but you can feel it stirring. You can feel the parts of you that are waking up, the strength that's growing in the silence and wisdom that's whispering in the H. And while you may not yet feel ready for what's next, something in you knows. You're being prepared for it. Real strength looks like vulnerability, but that's not what most of us were taught. We were raised to believe that strength means holding it together, keeping the mask on, smiling through the pain, and pretending everything is fine even when it's falling apart. From a young age, we learn that crying makes us weak, that asking for help is a sign of failure, that showing emotion is something to be embarrassed about. So we build armor, we learn how to suppress, deflect, distract. We get good at surviving by keeping ourselves small and silent. But what we call strength is often just fear wrapped in control. True strength is something entirely different. It's not about being untouched by hardship. It's about allowing yourself to be impacted and still choosing to show up anyway. Vulnerability isn't the absence of fear. It's a decision to be open while being afraid. It's choosing to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. It's allowing yourself to be seen, not just in your curated moments, but in your chaos, in your uncertainty, in your doubt. That's where strength really lives. In the raw, unedited spaces, there is tremendous courage in saying, I don't have it all figured out. There is profound power in choosing authenticity over approval. We live in a world that celebrates performance. We get rewarded for being productive, for being efficient, for being resilient in a way that often means suppressing our emotional reality. But the deepest resilience is built when we stop performing and start showing up as our full selves. That means telling the truth about our struggles. That means having hard conversations, setting boundaries, admitting when we're overwhelmed or lost or scared. It means us standing in front of people and saying, this is who I am, even if you don't understand it, even if you don't like it. Vulnerability is what makes us human. It's what connects us. You can't truly relate to someone through perfection. You connect through shared experience, through mutual pain, through honesty. When someone shares their truth with you, not the highlight reel, but the real messy, complicated stuff, it doesn't make you seem as weak. It makes you trust them more. It makes you feel less alone. It creates space for you to be real too. That's the ripple effect of vulnerability. It gives others permission to take off their own masks. And yet we resist it. We tell ourselves that vulnerability will lead to rejection, that if people really knew us, if they saw the parts we try to hide, they turn away. So we armor up. We hide behind achievements, being confidence, being humor or sarcasm or business. We curate our lives in ways that protect us from judgment. But that armor, while it might keep us safe, also keeps us isolated. It becomes a barrier not just between us and others, but between us and our own truth. We'll lose touch with who we really are because we're too busy trying to be who we think we're supposed to be. Real strength requires that we drop the armor, that we stop proving and start allowing. It takes more courage to be emotionally honest than it does to be emotionally perfect. To say, I need help. To say, I don't know what I'm doing. To say, that hurt me. These are not signs of weakness. These are signs of a person who has stopped outsourcing their worth. A person who is no longer willing to live behind a mask just to be accepted. A person who knows that their value is not tied to how well they pretend to be okay. When we embrace vulnerability, we become more resilient, not less. Because we stop relying on fragile fat guides and start building real inner strength. The kind that doesn't crumble under pressure because it's rooted in truth. When we acknowledge what we're feeling, when we give ourselves permission to experience the full range of our emotions, we stop avoiding pain and start learning from it. We stop numbing and start growing. Vulnerability becomes the soil where our most powerful qualities, empathy, compassion, creativity, connection, begin to take root. We also learn to hold space for other people's vulnerability. When we've faced our own pain and been brave enough to stay present with it, we're better able to hold others in theirs. We don't rush to fix them. We don't offer platitudes or dismiss their feelings. We sit with them. We listen. We say. And in doing that, we create relationships that are based not on performance, but on presence. We become safe spaces for others because we made peace with the parts of ourselves we used to hide. Vulnerability also unlocks purpose. Because when you're honest about your struggles, your story becomes something you can offer the world. Not as a cautionary tale, but as proof that healing is possible. That transformation is possible. That strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes just the whisper of truth in the middle of a storm. Your vulnerability becomes a bridge, a guidepost, a light for someone else's path. It says, you're not alone, you're not broken, you're not weak for feeling this. And that message might be exactly what someone needs to hear in their darkest moment. Vulnerability is not a liability, it's your greatest asset. It's the evidence that you're alive, awake, and unafraid to be real. It's not the easy path. It requires discomfort. It demands courage. It invites judgment. But what it gives you in return is priceless: the freedom to be fully human, the strength to face your truth, and the clarity to live a life that's actually yours. Healing begins with honesty, and honesty is in the most uncomfortable place to start. We live in a world that teaches us to hide our wounds, to filter our emotions, and to smile through the achy. We are taught to silence the truth when it's messy, when it's painful, when it makes others uncomfortable. But what we silence doesn't disappear, it festers. The more we deny what we feel, the more we distance ourselves from our own healing. Honesty is not easy. It's not polished or pretty. It's raw. It's vulnerable. It's standing in front of the mirror and telling yourself the truth you've been avoiding for far too long. We all have moments when pretending feels safer. When putting on a mask feels easier than facing what's underneath, we say we're fine when we're exhausted. We say we've moved on when our hearts are still broken. We chase distractions, accomplishments, and perfection so we don't have to sit still with the discomfort. But healing doesn't happen in denial. Healing doesn't happen when we bypass our emotions with positive affirmations or bury our pain under productivity. Healing starts when we get radically honest with ourselves about our wounds, our fears, our mistakes, our longings. Honesty is the doorway to self-awareness. It's the moment we stop blaming others and start asking ourselves the hard questions. It's the decision to stop pointing fingers outward and begin looking inward. What are we holding on to that is hurting us? What truths have we been running from? What parts of our past are we pretending impact us? The answers are not always easy to sit with. Sometimes they expose how we abandoned ourselves to please others. Sometimes they show us how we've been living someone else's version of success. Sometimes they reveal that the story we've been telling ourselves about who we are and what we deserve isn't rooted in truth, but in old pain. There is no transformation without truth. You can't shift what you're not willing to acknowledge. You can't heal what you keep pretending isn't broken. When you suppress your pain, it doesn't go away. It goes underground. It turns into anxiety. It turns into burnout. It shows up in your relationships, in your body, in your self-talk. Honesty is what brings it back into the light, not so you can judge yourself, but so you can dig in to understand. Understanding leads to compassion, and compassion is what softens the shame that keeps you stuck. Healing begins when you stop performing for the world and start listening to your inner voice. The one that whispers beneath the noise. Says, I'm tired. The one that says, this hurts. The one that says, I can't keep pretending. That voice doesn't lie. It's not interested in your highlight reel. It's only interested in your truth. And when you begin to honor that truth, something powerful begins to shift. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop waiting for someone else to validate your experience. You stop measuring your healing by how well you're hiding your struggle. It's tempting to want a fast fix, to want to skip the messy middle and go straight to the resolution. But healing isn't linear. It's not a checklist. It's a sacred unraveling. Some days you'll feel strong and grounded, and other days you'll feel like you're back at square one. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human, and in the process of becoming whole again, you'll shed layers that no longer serve you. You'll outgrow roles, relationships, and routines that were built on who you were when you were still in survival mode. And that shedding is painful, but it's also proof that you're healing. There's nothing weak about admitting you're not okay. There's nothing shameful about feeling lost or broken or overwhelmed. In fact, those admissions are signs of strength. They mean you're no longer willing to betray yourself in the name of appearances. They mean you've stopped pretending that silence is strength. They mean you're ready to face the truth even when it's hard. And in that honesty, you create space. Space to breathe. Space to grieve. Space to grow. Honesty also changes how you relate to others. When you're honest with yourself, you stop handing to manipulate or control other people's perceptions. You stop playing roles that exhaust you. You begin to show up authentically. Even if it means being misunderstood, you learn to say, this is what I need. Instead of hoping others will guess, you learn to ask for support without guilt. You begin to surround yourself with people who value truth more than your performance. And in those relationships, healing accelerates because you no longer feel the pressure hide. Being honest doesn't mean having all the answers. It just means being willing to say, this is where I am. That kind of honesty is the first step toward clarity. It's how you start to reconnect with your tuition. It's how you begin to trust yourself again. When you live in denial, you're always at war with your own instincts. But when you live in truth, your life begins to align. Choices boundaries become firmer. Peace becomes more accessible, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer living in contradiction with yourself. This kind of honesty is revolutionary. It disrupts the patterns that kept you stuck. It liberates you from the lies that kept you small. It reminds you that healing isn't about flawless. It's about being free. And freedom begins the moment you choose to tell yourself the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how raw. Because in that truth lives the beginning of everything you've been searching for. Peace, purpose, connection, and the power to rise, not as someone new, but as someone finally, beautifully whole. Your struggles are building your foundation, even when it feels like they are tearing everything down. It's hard to believe that in the middle of the chaos, in the heart of the pain, something good is being created. When you're in survival mode, when life feels like a constant uphill battle, it's tempting to think that everything is falling apart for no reason. But the truth is, the struggle is not just something to get through that's shaping you. You're not being buried, you're being planted. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every moment that pushed you to your edge is contributing to a deeper, stronger version of who you are becoming. The foundation being built through your struggle isn't visible on the outside. It's not the kind of strength that people immediately see or celebrate. It's the quiet resilience formed through sleepless nights and silent tears. It's the kind of strength that comes from showing up to life when your heart feels heavy and your energy is low. It's forged in moments when you wanted to give up, but chose to hold on. This internal foundation is what gives you depth. It teaches you patience. It expands your compassion. It humbles your ego. It reminds you that real growth doesn't happen when life is easy. It happens when life requires more of you than you think you can give. Struggles reveal what you're really made of. They test your character. They highlight the gaps between who you say you are and who you actually are when pressure is applied. And those moments, as uncomfortable as they are sacred. They're the moments when you begin to uncover the truth of your strength. They strip away the superficial. They dissolve the illusions of control and certainty. They force you to get clear about what matters and who you are. They challenge you to either shrink or stretch, to either collapse or rise. And every time you choose to stay in the fight, even with shaking knees, you're adding another layer to your inner foundation. It's easy to admire someone else's strength from the outside, to wish for their confidence, their wisdom, their calm. But what we often fail to see is what it took to build that. We don't see the years of struggle, the internal battles, the private breakdowns. We don't see the behind the scenes moments where everything felt impossible. Strength is not inherited, it's earned. It's built moment by moment, challenge by challenge, through the decisions you make when no one is watching, through the times you get knocked down and choose to rise again and again. There is no shortcut to becoming grounded. There is no fast track to building character. The foundation that will hold you steady in the storms of life isn't built on comfort. It's built through discomfort. It's built through the slow process of falling and learning, of hurting and healing, of trying and failing and trying again. You build your foundation every time you take responsibility for your choices, every time you hold yourself accountable, every time you choose integrity over convenience, every time you listen to your inner voice, even when the world tells you to be quiet. And as painful as struggles are, they often become the turning point in our lives, because it's usually not until we're stripped of what we thought we needed that we realize what we're truly capable of. It's when we lose our titles, our relationships, our routines, that we begin to discover the parts of ourselves that were hidden underneath. Struggles expose both our limitations and our potential. They shine a light on what needs healing and what needs nurturing. They break us open, not to destroy us, but to make room for something deeper to emerge. You may not realize it now, but the person you're becoming through this season will be stronger, wiser, and more anchored than the person you were before it started. The cracks you're experiencing are not weaknesses. They're the beginning of a transformation. They are how the light gets in. They are how your foundation expands to hold more truth, more purpose, more possibility. And one day, you'll look back and see that this struggle wasn't just something you survived. It was something that built you from the inside out. When life feels unstable, when the ground seems to shake beneath your feet, it can feel like everything is falling apart. But in reality, your foundation is being strengthened. Think of a building before it rises tall. Its foundation must first go deep. The dig and the disruption is part of the process. The pain has purpose. You are being equipped for what's ahead in ways you cannot yet see. You are being taught how to stand firm, how to weather storms, how to trust yourself under pressure. Every hardship is a layer of strength being poured into your soul. Every disappointment is shaping your perspective. Every setback is building the resilience you'll need for your next breakthrough. You are being grounded in something unshakable, not through ease, but through endurance, not through persistence. Your struggle is not wasted. It's not meaningless. It's not a detour. It's the path. It's the training ground for the strength that will carry you forward when others fall. It's giving you roots. It's anchoring you in your truth. And while the process may be long and the progress invisible, something powerful is happening within you. Something sacred, something real. You're not being tested so you can break. You're being tested so you can build the kind of strength that lasts. Your story matters. Every chapter, every devur, every scar. Not just the parts you're proud of, not just the moments that sparkle under the spotlight, but also the moments that felt like endings. The moments that brought you to your knees, the moments you prayed no one would ever see. The nights spent questioning your worth, the days filled with silence and shame, the seasons of loss, heartbreak, confusion, and doubt. All of it matters. All of it teaches us to curate our image, to showcase only what's polished, what's presentable, what's strong. But the truth is, the power of your story lies not in perfection, but in its authenticity. There's a reason we're drawn to realness. There's a reason we find comfort in the words of those who speak with raw honesty. Because in a world full of masks, it's a rare and healing to encounter someone brave enough to tell the unedited version of their life. Your story, your full, messy, complicated, beautiful story isn't something to hide. It's something to honor. Because in telling it, you claim ownership over it. You stop running from the parts of yourself that once felt too heady to hold. You stop waiting for permission to be who are, and you begin to see your past not as a collection of failures, but as the groundwork for your strength. When you embrace your story, you begin to understand that nothing was wasted. Not the heartbreak that shattered your plans, not the disappointment that left you questioning your path, not the detours that seemed like dead ends at the time. They were all part of your becoming. They derailed you, they revealed you. They pulled truths to the surface that might have stayed buried otherwise. They shaped your voice, your values, your vision. They taught you how to bend without braiding, how to rise without resentment, how to carry pain without letting it define you. It's easy to believe that our worth is tied to our success, to how together. We look from outside. The most magnetic people are rarely the most perfect ones. They are the most honest ones. The ones who have walked through fire and willing to talk about the heat. The ones who wear their scars not as signs of defeat, but as evidence that healing is possible. Your story, as it stands right now, has the potential to liberate someone else, to offer hope, to offer perspective, to remind another human being that they are not alone in their struggle. And that is a sacred gift. You don't need to wait until you're healed to share your truth. Healing isn't a destination, it's a journey, and you are allowed to speak from the middle of the process. You are allowed to say, this is where I am. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm still standing. I'm still groaning. That vulnerability, that openness is what creates connection. That's what builds bridges between hearts. That's what cuts through the noise and touches something deeper. When you minimize your story, you minimize your impact. You convince yourself that your pain was insignificant, that your voice doesn't matter, that your experience isn't worth telling. But that's a lie. Because the very things you think disqualify are often the very things that make you relatable, trustworthy, real. You don't inspire people by pretending to be perfect. You inspire them by being honest about imperfections and showing what it looks like to keep moving anyway. Your story holds power because it is lived truth. It carries weight because it's been tested. And the more you own it, the more give others the courage to own theirs. When you choose to speak honestly about what you've survived, you become a mirror for those who are still in it. You show them that survival is possible. Strength can look like softness. That hope can coexist with heartbreak. And that, even when everything feels uncertain, there is a path forward. There will always be people who misunderstand you, who judge you based on fragments of your story they don't fully understand. But their opinion does not erase your truth. Their discomfort does not diminish your journey. Your job is not to be understood by everyone. Your job is to be honest with ourselves, to stay rooted in your truth, to walk in integrity with your story, even when it's messy, especially when it's messy, because that's where your depth comes from. That's where your compassion comes from. That's where your resilience is born. Owning your story is also how you reclaim your power, because for many of us, our stories have been shaped by voices that weren't our own, by societal expectations, by past trauma, by criticism, by comparison. But when you sit with your story, when you write it out in your own words, when you speak it from your own mouth, something shifts. You begin to see that you are not defined what happened to you. You are defined by how you choose to carry it forward. You are not the victim of your past. You are the author of your next chapter. You get to decide what you do with what you've been through. You get to take the lessons, the strength, the wisdom, and use them as building blocks. You get to write the narrative in a way that honors both your pain and your power. You get to show others what it looks like to rise with integrity, to struggle with grace, to own your truth without apology. And in doing so, you become more than just survivor. You become a light, a guide, a reminder that even the hardest stories can give birth to something beautiful. Rise because of the pain, not in spite of it. It's a powerful shift, one that transforms how we see ourselves and how we move through the hardest seasons of life. Most people are taught to wait until the pain is over before they start again. Wait until they're healed. Wait until they're whole. Wait until the scars have faded and the tears have dried. But that waiting room can last a lifetime. Rising isn't reserved for the healed. It's available to those who are hurting and still willing to show up. It's not about pretending you're okay when you're not. It's about recognizing that the pain you're carrying is not a barrier. It's a bridge. There's a narrative that tells us strength is about endurance, about holding everything together and walking through fire untouched. But real strength, the kind that creates lasting transformation, is about walking through fire and allowing it to touch you, to change you, to burn away what was never yours to carry. Pain strips you down, but it also wakes you up. It brings clarity. It reveals what matters. It forces you to confront the truth of who you are when nothing is left to hide behind. That raw version of you, the one who's felt the sting of loss, the achy of betrayal, the weight of fear, isn't broken. That version of you is alive, alert, and capable of things the old you could never imagine. Rising because of the pain means allowing your struggle to become your teacher. It means leaning in, listening, and learning. What did it show you about your capacity to survive? What did it teach you about your limits? Real and imagine. What did it uncover in your relationships, your values, your priorities? These aren't questions you ask after the pain ends. These are questions that become lifelines in the middle of it. They help you anchor into purpose. They help you see that pain isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it's a portal to the most powerful parts of yourself. Too often we assume pain is a detour, a delay in our progress, a disruption of our path. But what if pain is the path? What if it's not taking you away from your life, but deeper into it? The version of you that is rising through pain is a version that sees the world differently. You notice things others miss. You develop empathy because you've been there. You develop patience because you've been forced to slow down. You develop gratitude because you know what it's like to live without peace, without joy, without direction. Pain, when processed with intention, doesn't shrink you. It expands you. And that expansion is what gives you your edge. Not because you're tougher, but because you're truer. You don't have to fake strength anymore. You've earned it. You don't have to chase worth anymore. You've found it within. The pain becomes part of your story, not the whole story, but a defining chapter. A chapter where everything changed. A chapter that taught you how to rebuild, how to reset, how to reclaim parts of yourself that got lost along the way. Rising from pain doesn't mean returning to who you were before. It means stepping into someone new, someone wiser, someone deeper, someone who can see with different eyes. You learn to stop apologizing for your sensitivity. You stop downplaying your experiences. You stop explaining away your emotions because you understand that what you've been through matters. It has value. It has weight. It has meaning. The world may not always see it. It may not always reward your resilience. But you no longer need the world to validate your process. You know what it took to survive. You know what it cost you to keep going. And that knowledge alone gives you power. Rising because of the pain also means setting a new standard for yourself. It means no longer settling for things that drain you. It means no longer tolerating relationships that silence you, environments that dim your light, goals that aren't aligned with your truth. You begin to make decisions based on your values, not your wounds. You begin to lead from your healed places, not your fear. And you begin to trust that the version of you who emerged from the ashes deserves more than just survival. She deserves to thrive. And here's something else rising doesn't always look like a bold, dramatic comeback. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when everything in you wants to hide. Sometimes it looks like saying no when you used to say yes out of guilt. Sometimes it looks like being still, resting, saying, I need help. These quiet moments of defiance against your old patterns. Those are acts of rising too. Pain changes you, but rising gives you the choice of how it changes you. Will you let it close your heart, or will you let it open you? Will you let it define your limits, or will you let it redefine your strength? What pain tries to destroy, rising rebuilds. Brick by brick, breath by breath. You don't need to wait for the world to tell you it's time. You don't need to wait until everything feels perfect. You are allowed to rise in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of your fear, in the middle of your healing. You are allowed to carry the pain and the power at the same time. You are allowed to be both hurting and hopeful. Rising isn't about erasing the pain. It's about transforming it, giving it a place in your story that fuels your next step, your next breath, your next chapter. Pain isn't your ending. It's the beginning of everything that comes after. It's the foundation beneath your feet, the fire behind your purpose, the catalyst that brings you home to yourself.